Alright guys, so welcome to the channel. I'm Defactor and today I have a very, very special video for you. I am joined by a very, very special guest, the one and only Tim Jooste, the CEO and co-founder of Coin Games, which is a really exciting Web3 game development studio that is currently developing one of the most anticipated games in Web3, Project O. I've had the pleasure of playing it in a playtest, and it's absolutely brilliant so far. Welcome in, Tim. How are you doing? And thank you for coming on board and talking to me today. How are you?
Hey, man. I'm amazing, Defactor. Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me. And yeah, thanks for the warm intro. Make me feel super special. So yeah, thank you.
No problem. No problem.
The one and only. The one and only.
The one and only. There is no other Tim out there. Surely there isn't.
Yeah.
Just imitators.
Yeah. I feel like I was being introduced into a wrestling match. I love it. So yeah, it's great.
We'll have to come up with a wrestling name for you later on in the or even the guys that are watching. If you have a decent wrestling name for Tim, then drop it down in the comments. Then maybe Tim can put it as his gamer tag.
From my sales career, I always had the nickname Yoda, but it was because people like it was kind of a twist on Jedi mind tricks, but basically like I could talk to salespeople and that were in a funk, like they couldn't break through, and after a 10-minute conversation or an hour, they would go out and have their best week or their best month. And They would always say, "You played Jedi mind tricks on me," and I started selling, like in a positive way. And so I got the nickname Yoda for being wise, I guess, and old. I don't know. Anyway, I'm 40, and that's kind of old for direct sales. And so I guess the wise and old part.
What a cool name, though, Yoda. Amazing.
Yeah, I like it. Well, as you can tell, I'm a Star Wars fan. I've got, if you can see it in the background, all the Lego heads are all Star Wars. I don't know if that's coming through very clearly, but wow. Yeah, I've got, I'm a big Star Wars nerd.
If you was a Jedi, if you was part of the Star Wars universe, actually, Tim, would you be a Jedi or would you actually be a Sith? Like, where would you fall? Or would you not be any of those? Would you be like a smuggler or something? Would you be? No, what would you be?
No, I'm definitely all about the good side, justice. So yeah, Luke is probably my favorite character. Yeah. Cool. So I mean, I didn't like how they handled him in the sequels. I thought that was an absolute disgrace. But I'm it's embarrassing to say, but or embarrassing, I guess. But it's like I was always Alliance in World of Warcraft. I'm a good person at heart. I like to think I am. My background is in theology, and I worked in in churches and was in children's ministry for a while, and so all of that before coming into this. And so genuinely, even Coin Games is all about building something that will impact a lot of people, and gaming was a big part of my life growing up. I was a shy, homeschooled, introverted kid, and so I didn't have a lot of friends. I had my brother, and I are still super close to this day. Okay. I had a single mom, and so games formed a really important part of my childhood. And when I was a teenager, and again, shy, no friend circle, really one friend and my brother, I played WoW, and I found friends in WoW. And so I then later on went into door-to-door sales, and this other part of my personality blossomed, and I realized your ability to communicate and all that is really just a muscle. I just had never really worked it. And so 15 years of sales turned me into the guy you see now, who doesn't seem shy and all that. And now I've spoken in front of thousands of people, and I have a huge network of friends and all that, but that wasn't how I grew up. And so gaming got me through probably some of the harder times in my life. And so I love games, and I really think they actually serve a good place in society where people need a way to disconnect from what's going on in their life and just have some fun. And so it's I kind of see it as a calling to make an amazing game with a ecosystem that will give people value for years to come. And so that's ultimately kind of the underlying mission of Coin Games and what we're building. But nice. Yeah, so
Well, let's talk about that, Tim. Yeah, because first of all, that's super interesting to me. I mean, I would have had no idea, and I think a lot of people who would meet you and hear you talk would have had no idea that Tim used to be this introverted, kind of
Yeah,
very
yeah.
insular type of guy. Because you're very extrovert, very charismatic. So it's quite nice to hear that journey. It's lovely to hear that games as well have been a
Yeah.
passion for you that you are now bringing to life and marrying merging almost with like your experience. So you come into coin games with tons and tons of sales experience, and
Yeah, yeah.
combining that with the passion for games. And what's the overall kind of I guess mission of coin games? You know, like just let's try and give people a
Yeah,
bit of
yeah.
an idea of what sets coin games apart in this Web3 space.
Well, part of the mission is actually right in the name, coin. So, in the early days, like you said, I had a really successful career. After high school, being shy and all of that, I went and got a degree in theology of all things, and I wanted to
Cool.
use my life to help people. And I went and did that for a year in New York, worked in a children's ministry and all that. And then I came back and it was kind of faced with the idea that I need to get like a normal job so I can actually make some money and so I could get married. And that led me into my first sales job. Kind of, it was really customer service, but in tech. And that was when I had my eye-opening moment about technology and the potential of it to really just scale and do amazing things in a very short window when you kind of hit that lightning in a bottle moment of great product and how to go to market, product market fit, like get it out into the hands of people. Because you can know marketing but have a terrible product and it doesn't work, and you can have a terrible product and no marketing, and actually that can work, but it real magic happens when you have both. And so I went to work at 19 for a guy named Adam Barger, who was the founder back then of Kazaa,
Okay.
or Kaza Gold, which was like the music downloading competitor to
Oh.
LimeWire.
Oh, cool.
If you remember that, I don't
Yeah,
know
I do.
how old you are, but yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah. No, I remember
40,
that.
so yeah, yeah, and so when music downloads were blowing up and the shuffle and the nano were coming out and everyone's searching for free music downloads,
Yeah.
these two products were at the top. And I watched him with like 7 employees, half of them in India, scale this business to millions
Wow.
in revenue in a short time. And that was my light bulb moment. And it kind of caused me to question the idea of going back to college, which was going to be my plan, go get a traditional degree in business and then head in that direction. And so I realized tech is amazing, and when you find magic, it can be incredible and really life changing. But I kind of saw that there were two sides to the business. There was the product side, and then there was the marketing side. And
Yeah.
I knew, I'm not a coder. I'm not going to sit for hours and figure out things, in that world. And so I figured I need to choose the marketing side. Now, like you said, I was shy. I was, at the time, I was probably playing World of Warcraft like 6 to 7 hours a day. And then in between work, I was on the forums looking up PvP builds and all that kind of stuff. Like I really loved the game. So I was,
Good times.
yeah, such good times. But I was really shy and introverted. So both were challenging. Do I try to, see if I have can become a coder or whatever, or developer, or do I lean into like sales and marketing, which didn't feel right either, but that
Yeah.
seemed like the lesser of the two evils for me.
Yeah.
And so I went and did the most radical thing I could think of. I went and got a door-to-door sales job
Wow.
at
That's
Verizon
hard.
Fios.
They're
Oh
hard,
yeah,
aren't they?
yeah.
Yeah.
So hard. I mean, you go out and you knock on a stranger's door. They don't know you're coming,
Yeah.
and you've got to win them over in seconds with trust and get them to like you and trust you. And then you got to basically convince them to buy something that they weren't shopping for,
Yeah.
in an hour. And but I kind of very quickly realized that sales wasn't about having the loud personality and all of that. You could do it just very genuinely. And if you believed in something, you could transfer, really the best salesmen just simply transfer true belief that they have to the buyer. And the buyer goes, I believe you. I want this
Yeah.
too. And
Yeah.
then they buy, you know? And then as long as the product's actually good and delivers, then you have a great, happy customer and you can build something great. And so I really believed in what I was selling, and I did really well. And so my first year, I was 19. I finished that year as the top salesman in the nation and across
Wow.
all of the United States with thousands of sales guys. And I made 100 grand. And so my previous
Damn.
job was like $12 an hour, and then suddenly $100,000. Still living at home with my mom. Bought a 350Z and crashed it like a month later, and a
This
bunch of
year,
other,
really?
you know,
Oh, wow.
yeah, a bunch of other stupid things. But it was like the beginning of something.
Yeah.
And so, and then I learned that, you know, the next evolution of the business was, can you train people and can you recruit? And I was even better at those things. And so, yeah, my career really blossomed for about 3 years. I stayed at Verizon, and then I got headhunted to Vivint, which ended up being the tech company that I spent the next almost 15 years with. And started as a rep, became number one in the country again, did that for 6 years, then started building teams in year 2. And by year 13, when I essentially retired from that industry, I had 750 sales guys roughly working for me. Started where, you know, 13 years before, it started with just me. And then I had 30 managers. We did like 350 million roughly in revenue my final year. About 2 billion lifetime over the 13 years. And yeah, and it was amazing. Created over 30 millionaires in the process from guys that, you know, some of them worked at Starbucks when I found them. And so it was an amazing journey, really cool career. And honestly, I'm still friends with all of them, love them. They're some of my closest friends. And I mean, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, one of them showed back up my house, my right-hand man, and gave me this as a gift, which is a presidential Rolex. It's a $55,000 watch as just a thank you.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, incredible. So, you know, it's just one symbol of the testament of that career. And it was incredible. And I learned so much. I got to work with some of the best people on the planet. The founder of that company actually invested in coin when I left. And so it was a dream. I mean, honestly, I could have died happy at the end of, at 38, you know, 37 when I left. I had fulfilled like every goal. But there was this kind of just stirring that happened on the inside that started like at 35, 36, where I started really realizing I feel like I have more in me to give. And I'm a believer just in life that you have one life to live. And so like make it the best life you can, you know, help as many people, take risks, go big, push yourself. Do hard things, you know, grow and change. And I just felt like there was a part of me that was never going to do that in the safety net of what I had built. I had a great life. I was making a few million a year. I was working with all my best friends, and it was really great. It was a comfortable horse that I was riding off into the sunset. Very comfortable, but there was that, I don't know, longing for adventure and really a longing to see what I could do, and not just for myself, but also I'm a believer that like you owe it to the world around you to be the best version of yourself, because that's how we make the world a better place. I think most people are good-hearted in themselves, and they want to not just live a good life for themselves, but they want to actually help their fellow man. And and we don't know how to do it, right? I mean, your show, it blesses people, right? And that's part of your expression of that. And so like, how do you do that? Well, I believe you push to be the best version of yourself. You don't hold back because of anything. You just be you, be the weirdest version of yourself that you can be, and do it all the way. And when you do that, you're like letting that light shine basically. And like that then causes other people to go like, man, look at the factor. He's like freaking doing it, you know? And he's like in the face of this, and you know, that happened to him, but he just picked himself back up and he did it anyway. And I'm going to do that, you know? And anyway, and that's where the ripple effect happens. So I just knew inside, I can't just stay here. Like I've got something to give, and I got something to build, and I've got talents I haven't fully used, and I owe it to the world to do that. and we'll see what comes out of it. And I didn't think it would be gaming. I didn't think it would be in Web3. I didn't think we'd be doing something this cool, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just knew it was something. And I knew it'd be in tech because I had spent 20 years learning how to build an incredible tech organization. I was so privileged to work with the founder of Vivint and other leadership as we grew the company. And we eventually, the company went public in 2018, 19.
Okay.
So I'd learned from the best. I mean, in that industry, Vivint is still the best. I mean, it's gotten even better since I left. And so I knew that, I could take what I'd learned in building a company that eventually went public and bring that, plus my network and all that to something new. And so I knew it'd be in tech, but I didn't know where or what. And then, one fateful day, I'm scrolling through Twitter after church on my brother's couch, and I come across this article that says Beeple NFT sells for 69 million.
Right.
And I'm like, what is that?
blown.
That's crazy. Yeah. I'm like, what is a Beeple? What is an NFT? I know what 69 million is. And so I read the article and I get a hint of something. It talks about pictures of monkeys that rappers are purchasing for $1 million, and I'm like, I don't get it really. Maybe it's art, and art doesn't make sense anyway for what it sells for sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, but there's something here. And what dawned on me after I watched a few videos was that we were dealing really more so with a technology that allowed digital ownership, that it wasn't about the NFTs or the collectibles or this is the next thing. And everyone, instead of owning a Lamborghini, you own this $1 million picture on your Twitter profile. I did eventually buy into that idea, and then eventually realized that, it's not going to last. Yeah. There were some great days though, but anyway. And so, but I knew we were on the verge, and the core essence of why Web3, why gaming. Someone asked me today, or 2 days ago, a VC, you seem to have a game that's going to make hundreds of millions and do very well in Web 2. He said, so why Web 3? Why complicate it with it? And my answer to him is still the same thing I realized that day, which is that ownership matters, and that players deserve to own their items in a game. And, while that doesn't necessarily, maybe it makes sense in every game genre, it definitely makes sense in some. And obviously we're building, a TCG, which is what we'll get to next. But ownership in card games has been there from day one. It's part of the core experience in the roots of where the genre came from in physical cards. I get to be a player and I get to be a collector. And digital card games stripped out half that experience. And they said collect to play, but there's no collect to collect. And actually Pokemon Pocket is pointing at the fact that people want to collect even in digital without ownership. And my argument is that if you allow ownership, people will love it more, value it more, and it'll even bring in new people that, like myself, who collect these things, but I don't play Pokemon. In fact, I've never played a single match of physical Pokemon, yet I own...
Really?
Yeah, yet I own, I don't know, 50 grand worth of Pokemon cards, and I don't know how to play. I've learned a little bit through the Pocket game. I played a bunch of other TCGs, but I just never played in physical because I don't want to I don't want to drive somewhere to go play. I'm a homebody. I spend time with my kids and my family, and I work, so it's like,
sure.
Yeah.
Do
So
you-
if
do your
ever,
kids-
if we,
I was going to say, do
go
your
ahead.
kids play it though? Do your kids play? Would you play it with your kids to learn with the kids?
Yeah, I probably would. They're at 6 and 9, so they're probably right at the age where they could. They own some Pokemon cards. We've gone out and collected together, and we've talked about playing. And so I probably should, Yeah. And if you came over and we hung out and you want to play, of course we'll do, But it's actually the only physical TCG I've really took the time to learn was actually Star Wars Unlimited, because I'm a big Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say, if there was going to be any, it's going to be a Star Wars one.
Here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm disappearing from the camera for a second, but anyway, yeah.
That's all right. It's worth it.
I'm trying to reach my collection,
wow.
but so I'm a big Star Wars fan, and this game came out, and I tried to master set it. I got close. It's a lot of cards because they have 4 versions of every card in a different treatment, the same card. So. Anyway, but I took time to learn that game, and it was really fun. It plays kind of like Commander from Magic, but
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, all that to say, I had this revelation moment that ownership would revolutionize video games, and I still believe that, and I still what I really my thesis on GameFi and is GameFi dead, and even from a Web 2 side, if you're a Web 2 guy watching this and you're like, oh wait, this is a Web 3 thing, hold on for a second, let me tell you why that matters, because if you went and decided to invest your time and money into the next physical TCG, One Piece, Magic, Pokemon, you don't even think twice. Of course, you own your cards. You have them in your binder. That's how you play with them, right? But and it's hard to like dissect the joy you get from collecting and from playing because they're so intertwined, right? I own these cards. I look at them in my binder. I remember the moment that I want to match with them, right? They're fully intertwined. And then if you want to, you don't have to, but you have the option of taking that collector side, the ownership side further into grading your favorite cards and turning them into something that, and collecting sealed boxes and having trying to master set something with cards you won't play with. And so there's that slope from player collector to pure collector, and there's some people on that cover the full spectrum and others are on one side or the other. But I believe that second half is so integral to that experience, and why to this day physical TCGs are on an absolute tear. I think they're at 13 billion in spend right now in physical TCGs, but it's predicted that by 2033 it'll be at 35 billion.
Wow.
So they're growing like crazy. Yeah. And digital card games have just chopped off half that experience and said we don't need it. And I just believe that's wrong. And number two, it's alienating a part of the group of people that would love to play in a game, but they just don't want to spend hundreds of dollars into something digital, and they don't actually own anything. And so anyway, all that to say, that was my light bulb moment. And I actually said back then, whoever makes Pokemon on blockchain is going to change the gaming world. And and we ended up like spending 1.5 years building another game, and that's a whole nother story for another time. And then that we didn't feel was good enough, so we shelved it. So actually the game you've seen and the game we're showing off now is only about 1.5 years in development. Like we have hustled to get this game built from scratch, like started over.
Wow.
We have an incredible team. And we learned a lot from the first game, but it was a different IP, different world. It was a 3D game. It was an auto battler. It was like Teamfight Tactics. So we essentially were building. Okay. So and it's a good idea, to be honest. And we may go back to it one day, but it was not. It was not the next great competitive strategic game. And so anyway, long story short, we that one fateful Sunday led to the start of the company, and then I just knew I needed incredible people. And so one of my best talents was recruiting great talent. And so, Kevin Lambert was really my first, we'll call it, recruit from the game industry to come found Coin Game Studios.
Yeah.
And
great
then,
recruit, by the way. Massively great recruit. Yeah. For a first one, incredible.
Yeah, so he joined and was willing to leave Microsoft, and he has a great heritage or pedigree in building great experiences. I mean, he's the lead designer on the current version of Solitaire that has like 1 billion downloads, and so incredible designer. Yeah. And he's a big TCG guy. He actually competed professionally in the game that preceded Hearthstone in physical cards. He even came to he competed in a tournament in the UK. I mean, he was a pro level player. There wasn't much of a pro scene, I don't think, but like he was one of the best. And then he's obviously kept that up through Parallel and all the other games recently. And then and then he introduced me to Brian Goebel, which is my CTO. Brian gave Kevin his first job in the game industry almost 30 years ago.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, so they worked together for 5 years, and so they reunited, and Brian and Mike owned their own studio, and Mike was like lead designer on games like Deer Hunter and many other games at Glue that did really well. Mm-hmm. And so we formed an amazing team, and so our core leadership has shipped 73 games, I think, between the three of them in their careers. They've been doing it almost for 30 years each. And then, and then the studio's just grown to about 40 now. And we've got veterans from King that worked heavily on Candy Crush, and from EA that built the economy for Apex Legends, Legends Mobile. And just amazing talent from artists to designers. We've got pro level Hearthstone players that also worked at Blizzard, who are part of our card design team, as well as pro level Magic players that worked for Wizards of the Coast. So we've got just incredible folks throughout the company, and so we're really, we consider we're a startup, but we are, an Avengers level team. We believe that's really here to build the next great TCG, and I think people will, hopefully, are seeing the early signs of that now with the actual product, and we'll see what we do over the next few years. So sorry for the long intro, but that's
do you know what? Like,
history.
I could just sit back, get some popcorn, and just listen to you all day. Honestly, Tim, because this is just gold. And I think a lot of people who are going to be watching this are going to be like, okay, this is so interesting. Hearing the journey so far that you've taken, because that was going to be my question. Is like, well, how do you go from the sales and all of a sudden having that light bulb moment of like connecting into a game? And I've always wondered. So it's really, really interesting. But I think probably what I'm interested in is around this journey and how it's going now, because I've had as you know, I've had a nice little experience with the game, and I've been really hyped and super excited about this game. I think a lot of people are as well. What makes this game so special? Because you have a special team behind it, and I'm super impressed that you've put this game together in such a short space of time. We know that the TCG space is quite it's quite competitive, and there's an argument that it could be a little bit saturated as well. So what is going to make this game the one game that really stands out? And in Web3 in particular, what is going to make this the game that's like, wow, I have to play this. This is the leader, setting the benchmark in Web3 gaming and blending seamlessly Web2 with it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think the first thing to know is that from day one, we've never felt like we were building a Web3 game. It's always been a Web2 game. And so our sights have always been, how do we build something that competes with Hearthstone, Marvel Snap, Yu-Gi-Oh, Arena, Magic, all of those things. Yeah. And so like those are our competitors. Not that we don't look at the competitors in Web3 in that light. Like Parallel's done some really amazing things, but we just have always been about building the best Web2 game. And our thesis, unlike most of the Web3 industry, has been the way to win in Web3 is to actually build for Web2 and to go win and get tens of millions of players in Web2. So when people like unpack the design, we're not, we don't have play to earn in our game. We have collect to earn, but it lives outside of the game in the sense that we reward collectors for collecting, which allows us to have a true Web2 game. So like when you play our game, people are gonna be like, well, where's the crypto comes in, where the token comes in? It's not in the game. Like the game is a Web2 game. You can play that and never touch Web3 if you don't want to. And but our Web3 ecosystem is actually very Web3. And as a guy who owns thousands of NFTs and has fully immersed myself in the world of Web3, collecting and degen behavior, I love our Web3 economy in the way that that's going to shape up too. And we'll probably, again, like we talked about earlier, have to save that for call number 2. And that's called the Collector Club. And we'll talk about how that works. So if you're in Web3, stay tuned for call 2. But for now, our goal has always been, how do we win in Web2? And so luckily we have great designers, and we also have a lot of really knowledgeable people in TCGs. And our argument is that though the TCG genre is very competitive and may seem saturated, I actually don't totally agree. I think we see a missing gap for a part of the product, and you could argue that the shooter genre was saturated, and then Fortnite came along, and it's like when you build something that people didn't know they needed, all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, it takes a massive share of the industry and actually forces everyone else to adjust. And so we've always been looking at a gap between the industry. And when I look at the industry, I see it in 2 sections. You've got the traditional TCGs, which are more hardcore games. They're a thinker's game. You have to be a very certain type of player to want to play, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and those games. And then Hearthstone probably was the most accessible TCG of its time. Though, again, if you're not into card games, you may not even go for that, right? A guy
Yeah.
who plays MOBAs, he's not looking at Hearthstone going, okay, that's my next game. He has to kind of get into it because a friend tells him to, and then he slowly gets into that. And so you have those more competitive experiences, deep experiences. You have to memorize a lot of card functions in order to compete. And the sessions are, might be 10 minutes on the low end, 15 minutes, but then they can get into the 40-minute matches pretty quickly. So it's a time commitment too, right? And it's really suited for PC. Sit down at your desktop and play that match. Now, you can play on the phone, and they all have a mobile app, but that app wasn't designed for mobile in the same way that like Brawl Stars is truly a mobile based MOBA, where it takes the best principles of designing for mobile and then captures the competitive spirit of a MOBA and sticks that inside just enough to make it a competitive experience. That's their key to success. And so most of the TCGs, while they have mobile versions, I wouldn't call them designed for mobile. The metagame, the experience, the UI, the UX, it's a PC product ported to mobile. Until here comes along Snap, right? Snap says, listen, we think there's a market for those times where you want that 3 to 5 minute game. You're on your phone. Maybe Snap at first was not people's first TCG. They were like, I'm a Hearthstone guy, I'm a Magic guy, but I want a better experience on mobile for when I have 5 minutes. So let me just download this other game and get into it. And then slowly, some players, it became their game. And then many others are like, listen, it's too light, it's too casual, doesn't have enough depth. And they eventually left, right? And went somewhere else. Yeah. And I would say that, and the reason we get excited about what we're building is I would say out of every five or so TCG true fans, one will say they love Snap, one will say it's okay, and 3 will say it's not for me, I didn't like it, right? Yeah. And to me, that means that there is a gap in the mobile TCG experience for those other 3 and 4 players, where basically they don't have their mobile TCG. They're still kind of getting along with the mobile version of Hearthstone or the mobile version of Magic or whatever. And the Snap didn't do it for them. And so we have been from day one aiming at this unopened or this unoccupied area of a mobile, native first mobile product that captures the true competitive spirit of the traditional TCG, which most of the market has grown up on, and then only recently had this option of a mobile, based product. And so that's ultimately what we're building. So in a nutshell, it's a mobile first competitive TCG. So we're looking to capture the competitive spirit that you love from Hearthstone, from Magic, from Yu-Gi-Oh!, but in a mobile native build and product that just fits well, 7 to 9 minute matches, fast, intense gameplay that you can do in a couple minutes. And so the version of the game you've been playing is really still the PC product. We are now internally, in the next few weeks, we've been working on the metagame. The metagame is going to feel very mobile native, and then which I think people will love. And then again, we can talk about that with the collecting thing maybe on the next call. And then we are now doing our deep dive into redoing UI. Even the board is going to get some love to really bring it to mobile. So I think people are going to love it. And so for those that are saying, Snap was cool, but I want more meat on the bone, you're going to love us. And for those saying, I love Hearthstone, I love these games with the competitive edge, but I want a faster session. I want more dopamine. I want quicker sessions. I want more gameplay, and I want, maybe more of gotcha mechanics and all that. I think they're going to love the game. And so, we believe we're kind of hitting the market at the perfect moment where Hearthstone, they're not even going after new users. They are doing only retargeting. So they're kind of in maintenance mode. Most other of the legacy players are in maintenance mode. You see what, Runeterra just shut down PvP and went full PvE. And then really the only one aggressively growing is Snap. And we offer a different experience. We offer that more competitive TCG experience. And so we're just two different products. And so I think people are going to be able to find which one suits them better. And I think there's literally 100, 50 million players out there that love traditional TCGs that want a mobile game to play from time to time, and we aim to be that game. So
Yeah. I think that's really interesting what you said there, Tim, because as someone that's played TCGs for the last 10, 15 years or so, I've always found it quite difficult to find that TCG that like ticks a lot of the boxes that makes me feel like, okay, I want to play that enough now. I want to play that on mobile. I've often been a little bit picky because I might find a game that like I can play on mobile, but it doesn't have that depth I'm looking for and it doesn't have that hook. And then I might find a game that does have that hook, but then it doesn't play that great on mobile. It doesn't have a mobile app. So I love that you've kind of talked about that. And one of the things that really came across for me when I was doing the playtest was how, as I say, initially I was like, this just feels very mobile, like optimized, very suited to mobile. But at the same time, when you play the games, you think, okay, there's a lot of depth here, and there's a lot of depth that you don't realize initially until like say the third or fourth game, and you're like, okay, this has hooked me now. So you're definitely onto something, I have to say. Oh, I think we just lost your audio there.
no, I think I muted myself to clear my throat, and then I never unmuted. Yeah, I was just saying what you said is perfect, and it nails on the head like exactly what the goal was and what we're going after, which is that guy who likes that competitive game, but now is looking to have either a mobile game he can go to when he's not at his PC. Maybe we're not their primary TCG, but we're the secondary, which is fine. Or we become that product where he can now really dive in deep because, the truth is that as we get older, our ability to play at our PC for hours diminishes, right? We're people in their 30s, which is a lot of the generation that was exposed to competitive games that grew up on them, right? If you rewind back to the guys that grew up on Mario, they love those platformers. But I really grew up in an era where it was Call of Duty, it was World of Warcraft PvP, it was a competitive social experience where I could also have a large I could collect things in a way and have things to flex to show my skill and my time in the game. And so in a way, that's what we're really building. And so people are gravitating to these games. As you also get older, you gravitate to more thinker games than you do speed. And so there's this giant wave of 30-something-year-olds that are realizing, I just can't sit down for 4 hours anymore and stay competitive in this game. I need these shorter sessions. And then they're wanting it on the go. They're wanting it like a lot of my gaming will be like on the couch. My kids are watching something. I'm with them, but then I'm playing a game on my phone. I cannot do that on my PC or my console because they want to play or they're watching something. So I need to be able to get in a game in 10, 20 minutes. And so I really believe we're building at the perfect time for a product that is like, people are going to absolutely love. And then I also think we will appeal to first-time TCG guys because we have that simplicity. We actually have a lot of the simplicity Snap has initially. We have like a 13-card deck. Like you're not overwhelmed with the deck building experience. But then, as you know, we double the base cards. So what's so interesting about that is if I'm a first-time player, I come in and I'm not overwhelmed. If I've never touched a TCG, it's a kind of an overwhelming thing to build your first deck. Like what do all these functions do? I can't even understand. I just read this thing 5 times and it's like in Greek, like what does it mean? Death blow. And then you can't picture that,
No.
So the ability to build a really simple deck around like a legendary, you kind of craft the deck around that legendary is great. And then I go in, and again, if I'm a first-time player, I'm learning the cards really fast because I'm seeing 2 versions of them in the game because we doubled the base cards. So my experience is so different from a guy like you that's grown up playing these, where you're like, oh, I get to think about how I get 2 of these cards and how I can use them twice in a match. Like, when do I use it? Do I save, Lightning Strike, for the end game to just burn that tower down? Or do I, and it, that's like the most diversive card we have in the game right now. Everyone either loves it or hates it, but it's like, anyway, so there's so much depth, but you don't feel it at first. And that's, when we had Lambie play for the first time and some of these like sweaty players, We constantly heard them go, oh wait, okay, so yeah, that adds a lot of depth. Oh wait, spell cards, like, oh, positioning, oh this, oh that,
Yeah.
and so there's a lot of depth. You just don't feel it. We actually are like concerned we might be getting too complex under the hood,
Really?
that it's moving us past Hearthstone, because our
Yeah.
goal was always in between Snap and Hearthstone. That was the goal. We feel like there's a sweet spot there. We can be closer to Hearthstone, I think, and get away with it. But anyway, all that to say, yeah, I do think we'll do very well on mobile, but I don't think we will slouch at all on PC. And our launch will initially be focused on gaining the user base in mobile, and PC will be kind of in beta. There will come then a time where PC gets its own fully optimized client, and I really think at that point, we'll see. We're just like right in that middle spot where I think we could have a super robust esports scene, while being super mobile friendly, and like the new player gets what he wants
Yeah.
to do. And that's a credit to Kevin and and the whole design team, because they've really crafted a game that hits that spot. And I think it's a stroke of genius for sure.
Yeah, I think it's such a difficult balancing act, isn't it, to build a game that caters for the casual market whilst also satisfies like the competitive market, because often games are sacrificing one for the other. And I think your game so far, from what I've seen, is definitely at that point where it can cater for both. And I think that's why so many people are so excited for it, Kevin, because they see that this is a game that can go like quite mainstream, because it just accommodates so many different interests. So really excited for it. One thing I wanted to ask as well is, what's been like the biggest takeaway that you guys have got so far from like some of the playtests? Like the playtests that you've been doing must have been so insightful to kind of guide and direct the game. What's been the biggest takeaways that you guys have got out of them so far?
So we've got two kind of types of playtests. We've had the community ones, and then we haven't really talked about it much, but we formed what we call a pro council. We went and started meeting with pro level players in our network that have either competitively currently play Hearthstone full-time, Snap full-time, or Parallel and other TCGs, or in the past have been pro level players in all of those games.
Sure.
And we formed a council, and it's mostly those members. And then we've also brought in a few larger kind of streamers that stream games. And so the council's maybe 25 people now at this point, and we've actually been playing with them for months. So we started doing, the first play test was maybe back in December when we had the very first build we showed off privately. And the goal was to get feedback both from the larger community as we kind of roll out the bigger changes, and then really detailed feedback from a small group of people that know the landscape super well and can really help us know, like, are we on track to legitimately compete with Snap and Hearthstone? And I mean, I think that's been like our goal. And so, and can we attract them? And so, we made it like the game council is like a non-incentivized position. They're privately playing. We're not really like showing this off or whatever, but they do a play session. I believe it's twice a month now, with our design team. So the whole design team is there, every member of the design team, and we sit for 2-3 hours. And we just play the current build, and we talk about it. And we talk about everything from balance to quality of life things. And we were expecting feedback that would really like rock the boat. And we were, because usually when you go into alpha, you're trying to get feedback. You're trying to find out, are there any real structural problems? Like, is the foundation we built got a problem? Because now is the time to fix it before we go to alpha, beta, and then launch. And so, but to our surprise, the feedback from day one, in fact, to their surprise as well, we had a former #1 in the world Hearthstone player who was #1 in the world 3 seasons tell us like that he was shocked that he had no major notes. He's like, I have no major notes. He's like, I have minor notes. He's like, your animations are too slow. He's like, I think, he already realized that like by drawing 2 cards, it would favor more like, aggro style decks rather than control. And so we're still working through some of that now, but he's like, I have no major notes. And he goes, the the game just feels right. It feels
Wow.
good. And he goes, that's the part that's really hard to get right the first time. So this was months ago. And so since then we've tweaked things, and, you know, even the build, well, you may know, but we have a new build launching
Soon.
next week, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
With a huge expansion. Yeah. And so, you know, the most common request from pro level to community has been more cards, you know, more content. Like
Yeah.
basically, like, this is amazing, but like, what else can I do?
Yeah.
And then yeah, so, and I think the most insightful feedback, just like confirmation, was really that one, that we are hitting that sweet spot between casual and competitive. We've got pro level players going like, I love the game. I didn't think I would. A lot of people telling us, I don't like Snap, but I like you guys, which was
Oh.
really great,
That's
because
interesting.
like, yeah, like people who love Magic, we're just, I think, on the edge of that competitive depth where they're like, there's enough here. And literally they would tell us, like, I was worried you were just a Snap clone. I was worried that you were very kind of simple. And he's like, instead, you've got a lot of depth. And then we have equal number, like, because in our community, we have people who've never touched a card game who are coming in and like figuring things out, and they're going like, yeah, you know, I didn't think I would like card games, but I was able to understand it really quickly, and it was like simple enough to get it. And so yeah, I think that's been a lot of the feedback that we've really loved. And then also the second piece is that, because you can make a product that everyone agrees that you're like, oh yeah, you are hitting the sweet spot between casual and competitive, but then people are like, but you know, the market doesn't want that product. I think the other piece we're finding is that the market wants that product. So it's both that we're hitting the sweet spot, and that the sweet spot is something people are interested in. Other than that, you know, the feedback has been like the criticism, or like the questioning, has come from that. Aggro decks have an advantage right now, because of the 2-card draw, whereas most games have you draw 1 card per turn. We're drawing 2, which we like that, because it makes it less of your games can be won or lost based on your luck of the draw, and it's more based on your deck construction and how you chose to play it, which I like that. We love it. We want to keep it. But that really favors decks that just burn the other guy down much quicker. And so it puts like control decks and like the decks that really like blossom at the end with big finishers, it puts them at a disadvantage. So we're now like figuring out, can we get enough control mechanics in the card design to counter the 2-card draw? So that's probably the biggest thing we're kind of feeling out. But we think we can do it. So we're hopeful that we can keep the 2-card draw and make it work.
Yeah, I like the 2-card draw. I have to say, it was one of those, when I was in the playtest, I wasn't expecting it. And then as soon as I realized that we were drawing 2 cards a turn, I was like, okay, that's actually kind of interesting, because it gives you, of course, not card advantage, but when you have lots of options, it's then, as you say, really down to what am I choosing and why am I choosing it? And ultimately making the right decision to try then and outwit your opponent, because there's nothing worse than like not being able to outwit your opponent just because like they
you didn't draw what you needed.
Exactly. You know, you want to be able to actually have the cards and play them and outwit them. So yeah, I really like
it.
that.
It also makes for the fact, like in Snap, you build a 12-card deck, but like 3 of your cards kind of have to go to what I will call draw protection cards, which is basically like cards that you wouldn't really put in the deck if you didn't have to make sure that you manage your curve, because you can have a great game in the end game, but because you missed, you just couldn't play on turn 1 and turn 2, you lose, right? Or they move so much more aggressively at you, and they snap and whatever, that you're forced to back out. So, and that's a poor play experience. It just kind of sucks, because it's like I just was unlucky, and it's not about skill, and so by giving the 2 cards, you don't have to build the deck with draw protection in it. You basically can pretty comfortably build a true 13-card deck. So our 13-card deck compared to their 12 has a lot more, flexibility in the design. And so I think we're going to get like, I don't know how much more, but it's definitely a big step up in like, interesting deck construction as well, because you don't have to like do this staple type of curve where it's like I
Mm.
need two twos and two three, from a mana perspective in the deck. You can kind of work through that a little bit differently. So
Yeah.
anyway, all that to say, I think, yeah, I'm excited. I think we're going to be able to figure it out, but with put in more control based cards and things that will allow you to counteract the aggressive deck type. So yeah.
Yeah, excited to see that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing as well that you mentioned, so Tim mentioned this to me before we went live, was talking a little bit about building out the world and the universe that they're putting together. And for me, as someone that's played a lot of TCGs, lore is so, I'm like a bit of a lore goblin. I love like proper lore. And it could be an amazing card game. The mechanics could be great. The cards could look fantastic. But if there's no real proper lore, if there's no real universe that really grabs me, I'm often like not playing it. With regards to your IP, which I think is really interesting, looking at kind of mythical type fairy tale characters and putting a spin on them, what sort of things are you thinking about around building out this IP and building the lore? Like, what can players kind of expect around that?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to kind of close out. I think that like so the IP, the premise of our world is really quite cool. We looked at the idea of licensing an IP out there in the world, and when we looked at the numbers of how that works, you typically give up 30% of your revenue to an IP company off the top, and so that would make it very tough to also have a proper ownership economy and many other things. So we ultimately decided that we wanted to control our own destiny and just build our own IP. And so after like some thinking, we were like, how do we still have nostalgia and download compulsion and recognizability while having our own IP? And we realized what we could do is we could take the characters from public domain that are well known and available to use and entirely rewrite them. So a lot of people don't fully realize, once we get into our lore, they'll realize how much we're rewriting them. They see our version of, Winnie the Pooh, and he's really entirely different character. He's 6'8". He's got boxing
fierce.
gloves on. Yeah. He's like so in our world, he's an entirely different character in reality. But he's the cage fighting champion of the world of Origins. And, he still has a sweet tooth and still likes naps and all those things. And so we've got many characters like that we're bringing to life. And we do have a pretty interesting lore, but the high level of it, and I won't, go dive too deep because we want to kind of use this as, drip stuff that we do throughout the marketing campaign. But it's a parallel world to Earth that had access to our world. Hence why we have hints of these characters in our bedtime stories and myths and legends and fairy tales, where we did interact with, thousands of years ago, Red Riding Hood, Robin, Queen of Hearts, all these characters, Dracula, and exactly, Mad Hatter. But we didn't realize that, well, one, it's now been thousands of years since we've seen them, tens of thousands of years, centuries, and we have ceased to believe they're real, and their stories have drifted from who they really were into these fantastical stories. And so now, after all this time separated, the White Rabbit appears, the portal opens up, but this time there's an invite into their world rather than them coming to ours. And the invite is simply, are you worthy? And, we'll kind of dig deeper into a bit of the lore, but the concept of the game is actually in some ways similar to the concept of Pokemon, where the player is kind of a student at this hero school where he's learning to battle inside this idea. And so you, the player on the sideline, are learning to battle with these copies of these characters and these moves. Yeah, and so there'll be obviously a collector element. And so we have big plans to expand the universe way beyond just a game. But that time will come later. Our focus now is make a hit game, and so that's where it'll begin. But just for people who do like lore and a totally different world to immerse yourself in, you'll definitely get that over the years with us. And yeah, I think it'll be quite exciting. And so, yeah, it's an original IP. I mean, from a legal perspective, we're actually creating brand new characters. Cool. It's just there are kind of hints and inspiration from these public domain characters, and then we're retelling them in really fun ways. And so I think players are going to love it because there's the nostalgic aspect, but there's also, and the familiarity, but there's also the kind of like viral nature of like seeing a character you never thought of as a fighter come to life in a new way, right? And so and our testing has been really good. You know, it kind of, we see ourselves as the Fortnite of card games, right? Card games, like shooters, like if you think about the shooter industry before Fortnite, it was very different. Every single shooter they wore green, gray, or black or tan, and they had military weapons, and then they always like, it was very real. There was no bright colors. Like think about it. Before Fortnite, every shooter was the same color palette in a different way. Fortnite then flipped it on its head and said, listen, let's not take ourselves that seriously, guys. And probably the advisors to Fortnite are like, you know, it's 18 to 25-year-old males. They just want hardcore stuff. Like there's no proof this will work. And they're like, trust me, guys, fun always works. And so, and they just flipped it on its head. And so really from day one, when we were like looking to make a card game, we had a lot of advice to kind of go the traditional route, to do, you know, the dark, scary, this and that, and, you know, all of that stuff, which has its appeal and has its place, but it's also been done 20 times before.
It's not gonna add anything.
No, yeah, I have a really great screenshot in one of our Miro boards of like the top like 30 TCGs ever made, and it's a color palette that almost just looks the same. Like there's a lot of the same there. In fact, the one that has aged the best is Hearthstone. Hearthstone was the first one to have a little fun and add a little cartoony type twist. And like World of Warcraft, when you go more stylized, it ages far better. People don't realize that, but when you go more realistic, you age far worse. But when you go more fun and stylized, it can still look relevant and good 10 years from its inception. And so we saw that. We also saw what Snap did, and with their kind of young style. And then we just decided to, you know, do what was fun. And so we were inspired by Puss in Boots, the movie, and Into the Spider-Verse and Fortnite. And we basically combined that together where, you know, a kid can play it and love it. And I believe adults, I mean, I've got 40, 50-year-olds who see the characters and go, dude, Winnie the Pooh is so freaking badass. He's awesome, you know, like I love him, you know, and Queen of Hearts, you know, and so we just have fun. And I think that's the idea, right? Rather than trying to be dark or scary, you know, we're just enjoying it. And our villains are awesome, and our, you know, and our heroes are awesome. And so anyway, I think it's going to have mass appeal. It fits really well on mobile, and it's fresh. And I think people want that now, you know, so.
Absolutely, Tim. Yeah. And I know that we're running out of time a little bit here. So I just want one final question for you. The game is shaping up amazing. All things going well. When can, I guess, the world expect to see Project O release? So we're looking at later this year. We're looking at early next year. When are we kind of planning this?
Yeah, so the goal right now is we are internally, like the next build that comes out for, so if anyone is watching this and they want to play, obviously, you know, they can join the Discord, and they can, we constantly are giving people opportunities to win, like whatever, the opportunity to be a part of the playtest, right? Our core community playtests with us constantly because they own the old NFT or whatever, and then we have like friends of the brand and all that. So and then other creators like yourself are able to play test with us, right? And then that's going to continue to open up. So just being in the Discord, you'll be able to play. So if anyone's watching that, come join, and you can do it now. But if you're out there watching this later, the plan right now is that we are, like, the build you're about to play has a bunch more content behind the scenes. We're already playing an early version of the next build, which involves pack opening. And so in the one you're going to be able to build your own deck. So deck building is coming in the one you're doing, and it's a bigger expansion. We're already into the pack opening and testing the meta game, and that's what we're working on now. So internally, the team is in like meta game build out, and we have some interesting ideas. The meta game, and we'll save this for call 2, but it's kind of a it's got elements of Pokemon Pocket with like the dopamine of the chase and chasing rare cards and really highlighting the collector experience. It has elements of progression in the cards like Snap, where the card evolves as it levels up. And then we have something very interesting at the end we're calling Fusion, or kind of card crafting, which involves the collecting side and the rarity of the card. And it actually takes some inspiration from CSGO in its kind of like rarity system where the skins are all diverse. So it's really suited for a very unique kind of collector ecosystem, and where we kind of bridge then out of the game to the collector club, where Web3 and collectors alike can enjoy a crazy late game like rarity chase, where you and I can have the same card, but yours is a 9.5 and mine is a 6, and you rolled. So you have the dopamine gotcha in the pack opening, and again at the end in like the what I'll call the fusion. So we'll talk more about that later, but like it's going to be really awesome. Like people are going to freaking love it. Like, and collectors will be able to eat their heart out. And I believe we will be the first game to bring physical, TCG collectors into digital in a big way. And so all that to say, their team's working on that now. That's going to take some testing because there's some new ideas in there that have never been done before. And so we are racing to get that done. We'll be testing that with the community later this year. And then the goal is, if all goes well, to soft launch the game in December of this year in the Philippines and a couple areas. So it's not global release. It's not anyone watching, but if you happen to be in one of those geos, you'll be able to play and download the game. It'll go on the App Store. And then progressively in January, February, March, and April, we will continue to open up new areas until GDC. And then the goal again, and game timing in gaming, just take it with a grain of salt. It changes all the time. Hashtag GTA 6. And so, but we won't be that bad. But anyway, and so, but if we can hit our targets, we will be opening up the doors to the world actually right after GDC. And there will be a big event kind of focused at the Web3 and the collector side called, we're tagging it called Race to Mint, but it'll basically be it'll be a gamified way to mint the first editions in our game, because we'll have kind of first edition cards. You're not gonna be able to just buy them. You have to play to get them. And so that's going to be really exciting. And then shortly after that, we'll continue to be testing the game in Web 2. And then when we feel the game is ready, we will kind of go wide on mobile with PC in beta. And then there'll come a time where there's the official full PC launch. And that will probably feel like the full launch of the game. And that might be early 27. So it's a progressive launch. But the point is that if you're early now and you're watching this, you'll probably be able to start playing by the latest, like April of next year. And that'll be the live game, and it'll just kind of continue to progress till like the full global
package
marketing launch. Exactly. So
very exciting. Yeah. I mean, Tim, there's so much that you guys have done already. I love the playtest. If you guys have not seen the video, actually, by the way, of my playtest, I will link it in the description of this video below so you can check it out. And as Tim mentioned, there are more playtests coming, so make sure that you jump into their Discord. I'll also link that down in the description below. They have so many cool events that are happening so that you can get access to playtests. And not even if you don't, there's just so many ways to kind of engage with the community, and you can get so much out of it that way anyway. So yeah, I'm really excited for what you guys are building. I can't wait for the next round of playtest. And this has been so fun talking to you and listening to what you've been saying and how you've been getting to where you are. I've loved it, and definitely I'd love to do another call. So hopefully we can set it up.
Let's plan part 2 soon, next week or the week after. So anyway, I appreciate it. I got to run, but this has been awesome to Factor, and appreciate your time, and everyone who's listened to this point. Thank you guys, and come say what's up in the Discord. And we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you very much, Tim. And we'll catch you on another episode with me, the Factor, and Tim, CEO of Coin Games. Thank you guys, and catch you soon.